Breaking: Supreme Court just shattered gun laws in all 50 states. What every gun owner must know. Stop everything you're doing if you own a gun, because what I'm about to reveal is going to change the rules forever. The Supreme Court has just dropped a ruling that no one saw coming, and it has completely dismantled the permit systems that have controlled gun ownership across the country for decades. Every state, from the strictest to the most lenient, is now facing a legal reality that could put your rights, responsibilities, and even daily life into a completely new context. If you think you understand gun laws, think again. This decision isn't just news, it's a revolution that every gun owner needs to comprehend immediately. For years, Americans have relied on state permit systems to govern how guns are carried, purchased, and transported. Some states required complex applications, multiple background checks, mandatory training, and even psychological evaluations, while others had more relaxed standards. Regardless of where you lived, these systems created a sense of order and predictability. Gun owners knew what to expect, law enforcement knew the rules, and citizens felt a degree of security knowing who could legally carry a weapon. But all of that has been overturned with a single, historic Supreme Court ruling. The court's decision doesn't just tweak the rules, it obliterates the permit structures that were once the backbone of state-level gun regulation. Millions of gun owners are waking up to a new reality where what was once legally required may no longer apply. In some states, carrying a gun could now be as simple as owning one. But simplicity comes with risks, and understanding those risks is more important now than ever before. This ruling represents freedom, but it also imposes a level of responsibility that cannot be ignored. Gun rights advocates are calling this a historic victory, perhaps the most significant in decades. They argue that it affirms the Second Amendment and protects law-abiding citizens from bureaucratic overreach. On the other hand, critics are sounding alarms about the dangers of removing permits, warning that the absence of structured oversight could lead to accidents, misuse, and chaos. The reality is that both perspectives have merit. Freedom without responsibility can be dangerous, but responsibility without freedom feels restrictive. This ruling has shifted the balance dramatically, leaving gun owners to navigate uncharted territory. For many, the changes will feel liberating. Imagine no longer needing to wait weeks for a permit, attend mandatory classes, or navigate complex application systems just to exercise your legal rights. For some, it may feel like the government has finally stepped back, allowing law-abiding citizens to enjoy freedoms that were always meant to exist. But the relief comes with caution. Rules still exist, federal laws still apply, and local restrictions haven't completely disappeared. Knowing the fine print is now more critical than ever because ignorance could come at a steep cost. This Supreme Court decision is unique not just because of its scope, but also because of its immediacy. Previous landmark rulings often took years to impact the entire country, with states implementing gradual changes. This time, the effect is instantaneous. Every state must now adapt to the new constitutional interpretation. Lawmakers, police departments, and gun owners alike are scrambling to understand what this means in practical terms. For gun owners, it's more than news. It's a mandate to rethink how they handle, carry, and protect their firearms in daily life. If you've ever traveled across state lines with a firearm, you know how complicated permit systems can be. Each state had its own rules, some recognizing out-of-state permits, others not. This created a legal maze that even experienced gun owners could get lost in. Now, with this Supreme Court ruling, there's a baseline of rights that cannot be overridden by state permit laws. That doesn't mean travel is entirely risk-free, but it does mean that the legal landscape is far simpler than before, provided you stay informed and act responsibly. The ruling also raises questions about safety, training, and public perception. Just because permits are no longer mandatory doesn't mean preparation and awareness can be ignored. Responsible gun ownership has always been about more than legality. It's about skill, judgment, and safety. With the legal barriers removed, gun owners are now faced with a choice: continue to prioritize safety voluntarily or risk becoming part of the problem that critics warned about. The courts have freed you from bureaucracy, but they cannot protect you from accidents, misuse, or the consequences of negligence. Economically, this ruling could trigger a wave of change. Gun sales are expected to spike as individuals rush to take advantage of easier access and expanded rights. Firearm training programs may also see a shift. Without legal requirements, many will seek training voluntarily, emphasizing skill rather than compliance. Retailers, instructors, and gun safety organizations will need to adapt to a new market dynamic, where demand is driven more by responsibility and desire than legal necessity. It's a new era for the entire gun industry, from sales to training to advocacy. Law enforcement agencies are already adjusting protocols to reflect the Supreme Court's decision. Officers must now navigate a landscape where previous permit violations no longer apply, and citizens are legally allowed to carry without prior approval in many cases. This has led to urgent briefings, internal training sessions, and public advisories to ensure that both police and citizens understand the new rules. Miscommunication or ignorance in this transitional period could lead to dangerous misunderstandings, so awareness is paramount. The decision also has broader cultural implications. Guns have always been at the center of American debate, and this ruling will likely intensify conversations about rights, responsibility, and public safety. It forces communities to rethink the balance between personal liberty and collective security. Advocates of gun control will likely push for alternative measures to maintain safety, while gun rights supporters will celebrate what they see as a restoration of constitutional freedoms. The clash of perspectives is inevitable, but the ruling itself is now the law of the land. Historically, this is a turning point. Few Supreme Court decisions have such immediate nationwide impact. Previous rulings often created incremental changes, allowing states time to adjust. This decision is sudden, sweeping, and far-reaching. Every gun owner is now part of a historic moment, whether they realize it or not. The effects will ripple through legislation, law enforcement, commerce, and personal behavior for years to come. For gun owners who have previously struggled with permits, renewals, and bureaucratic red tape, this ruling represents liberation. You no longer need to wait, file, or justify your rights to carry a firearm. But liberation without knowledge is dangerous. The new legal environment still demands awareness, responsibility, and training. The laws may have changed, but the principles of safe and responsible gun ownership have not. Ignoring these principles could have severe consequences, regardless of what the Supreme Court has decided. Travelers, hunters, self-defense enthusiasts, and everyday gun owners all face the same reality. The rules have shifted. Understanding which federal laws remain in place and which local ordinances may still apply is critical. A single misstep could result in legal trouble, fines, or worse. This ruling may feel like freedom, but freedom always comes with responsibility. It's a chance to exercise your rights fully, but only if you do so wisely. The ruling has already sparked nationwide conversations about the future of gun laws. Advocates and critics alike are analyzing every word of the decision, trying to anticipate its consequences. Will states attempt to pass new laws within the limits of the ruling? Will federal lawmakers intervene? How will public safety be impacted in the short and long term? These questions remain unanswered, and gun owners must stay vigilant to respond effectively as the landscape evolves. For parents, families, and households with firearms, the decision underscores the importance of safe storage and education. Just because permits are no longer required doesn't mean children, visitors, or neighbors are automatically protected. Responsibility now falls squarely on the shoulders of gun owners to ensure that firearms are stored securely, used safely, and handled with respect. The absence of permits increases the stakes for personal vigilance. The Supreme Court ruling also raises important ethical questions. Legal rights are now clearer, but ethical responsibility remains a personal choice. How will you balance your newfound freedom with the potential risks to yourself and others? Responsible gun ownership has always been about more than compliance. It's about judgment, discipline, and awareness. The decision amplifies both freedom and accountability, making these ethical considerations more urgent than ever. As the nation digests this news, communities are bracing for change. Gun shops may see a surge in sales, training centers may adapt curricula, and law enforcement may redefine public safety protocols. Citizens may need to reassess their own safety plans, neighborhood watch programs, and personal defense strategies. The ruling doesn't just affect the law, it impacts daily life in practical, immediate ways. Every gun owner is now part of a larger story, one that will unfold over months and years. Education and knowledge are now your strongest allies. Understanding the precise legal landscape, knowing federal and local rules, and committing to responsible practices will define how you navigate this new era. Ignorance is no longer a safe option. The Supreme Court has removed legal barriers, but it cannot remove the consequences of missteps, accidents, or negligence. Staying informed is not optional. It's essential. The Supreme Court's decision has fundamentally changed the relationship between citizens and the government regarding firearms. Where permits once regulated behavior, constitutional rights now set the baseline. This is both liberating and challenging. Citizens must step up to embrace the responsibility that comes with freedom, ensuring that safety, awareness, and ethical considerations guide their actions. The legal landscape may have shifted, but the principles of good citizenship remain unchanged. In conclusion, the Supreme Court ruling has shattered permit systems in all 50 states, creating an unprecedented legal environment for gun owners. Freedom has expanded, but with it comes the weight of responsibility. Safe storage, training, awareness of federal and local laws, and ethical consideration are now more critical than ever. Millions of Americans are now living in a new era of gun ownership, one that offers freedom but demands vigilance. The landscape has changed, history has been made, and it's up to each gun owner to navigate this new reality wisely, safely, and responsibly. This is your moment to act. The rules are no longer what they were, and the responsibility has never been greater. The Supreme Court has spoken, the permit systems are gone, and the future of gun ownership in America has entered a new era. Those who adapt, educate themselves, and act responsibly will thrive. Those who ignore the warning signs risk becoming part of the chaos critics predicted. The choice is yours, the time is now, and the landscape has forever changed. The shockwaves from the Supreme Court's ruling are still rippling across the nation, and every gun owner is suddenly confronted with questions they never had to consider before. If you live in a state that once had the strictest gun laws, this is nothing short of revolutionary. Suddenly, laws that once seemed insurmountable no longer exist. Background checks, mandatory permits, waiting periods. Some of the barriers that caused frustration and fear are now gone. But freedom without preparation can be dangerous. This ruling has effectively handed power to millions of citizens, and the consequences of mishandling that power could be severe. Across the country, gun owners are reacting in real time. Some are celebrating openly, posting online about their newfound ability to carry without hassle. Others are hesitant, unsure of what the ruling truly means for their daily lives. Families, households, and communities are all facing the same urgent question. How do we exercise our rights responsibly when the old safety net of permits is gone? The answer lies in knowledge, preparation, and a commitment to ethical firearm practices. Without these, the very freedom this ruling grants could quickly turn into chaos. In towns and cities where gun laws were once considered strict, local police departments are scrambling to update guidelines. Officers are now tasked with balancing enforcement of federal laws while respecting the new Supreme Court precedent. Training sessions are being held, Internal memos are being circulated, and community outreach programs are being redesigned to help citizens understand the new reality. For gun owners, this transitional period is both an opportunity and a warning. Understanding how local and federal laws intersect is no longer optional, it's survival. Traveling with firearms, something that has historically been fraught with legal hurdles, is now entering a new era. Individuals who once worried about crossing state lines with a weapon can now breathe a sigh of relief, at least in theory. The Supreme Court has set a constitutional baseline that states cannot override. Yet, caution remains essential. Federal regulations regarding prohibited individuals, background checks for purchases, and safety requirements are still in effect. Ignorance of these rules could result in severe penalties, making education more important than ever. Safety training has now taken on a new urgency. Previously, mandatory training courses were part of the permit process, ensuring that anyone carrying a gun had at least basic knowledge of firearm safety. With permits no longer required, voluntary training becomes the only way to maintain those standards. Gun owners must ask themselves, am I prepared to handle a weapon responsibly without the guidance that was once mandated by law? Those who neglect this responsibility risk accidents, misuse, and even criminal liability. Communities are already beginning to feel the effects. Gun shops report surges in sales as individuals rush to take advantage of their legal freedoms. Training programs are seeing unprecedented demand, with many gun owners seeking to educate themselves voluntarily. Neighborhoods, particularly those in historically restrictive states, are now navigating a new dynamic. More residents may carry firearms legally, and with that comes both potential safety benefits and challenges. Understanding how to coexist safely in this evolving landscape is crucial for maintaining harmony and avoiding unnecessary incidents. Legal experts are weighing in, emphasizing that while the Supreme Court ruling removes state-imposed permits, it does not remove personal accountability. Just because you are allowed to carry does not mean reckless or negligent behavior is acceptable. Federal laws regarding prohibited individuals, background checks, and interstate transfers still apply. Missteps could result in fines, criminal charges, or the loss of freedom. Knowledge of the law is now not just a convenience, it is a survival tool. For households with multiple firearms, the stakes are higher than ever. Safe storage has always been important, but now it's imperative. The absence of permits removes one layer of oversight, placing the responsibility squarely on gun owners to ensure that weapons are stored securely and inaccessible to children or unauthorized users. Families must develop clear safety protocols, educate members about proper handling, and make conscious decisions about when and how firearms are used. Neglecting these duties could have disastrous consequences. The decision also has profound ethical implications. Legal freedom does not equal moral freedom. Every gun owner now faces choices that extend beyond legality. How will you use your rights responsibly? Will you invest time in training, safety, and awareness? Will you engage with your community to promote responsible ownership? The Supreme Court has cleared the way for freedom, but it is up to each individual to ensure that freedom is exercised wisely and ethically. On a political level, the ruling is already sparking debates and potential countermeasures. Gun control advocates are analyzing every aspect of the decision, seeking alternative methods to maintain safety while respecting constitutional protections. Lawmakers in restrictive states may attempt to craft new legislation that navigates the ruling's boundaries. These political battles will shape the next era of gun policy in America, and gun owners must remain vigilant to protect their rights and understand potential changes that may arise. Public perception is also shifting. Citizens who once feared widespread firearm misuse may feel anxiety in response to the ruling, while advocates of gun rights celebrate a long-sought victory. The media is amplifying both perspectives, creating a narrative that blends excitement, concern, and controversy. Gun owners are caught in the middle, needing to navigate not only legal responsibilities but also societal expectations and potential backlash. Understanding these dynamics is part of responsible ownership in the new landscape. Economically, the ruling may redefine markets related to firearms. Retailers are seeing increases in both sales and inquiries about training, safety, and legal guidance. Firearm accessories, safety gear, and storage solutions are also in higher demand. Instructors and advocacy groups are recalibrating their programs to emphasize voluntary training, ethical responsibility, and awareness of new legal parameters. For entrepreneurs and small business owners in the firearm sector, this ruling presents opportunities to educate, equip, and serve an engaged audience seeking guidance and safety. Traveling, self-defense, hunting, and recreational shooting are all now impacted. Individuals who previously faced legal hurdles may find new freedoms, but they must also navigate unfamiliar territory. Even in states with permissive laws, certain locations, such as schools, government buildings, and private property, remain legally off limits for carrying firearms. Understanding these boundaries is essential to avoid unintended legal trouble. The freedom to carry comes with the necessity of constant awareness and informed decision-making. Law enforcement is adjusting to a changed reality. Officers must now discern between lawful carriers and those acting illegally, often without the cues provided by permits. This requires new training, updated protocols, and clear communication with the public. Gun owners must also adapt, understanding how to interact with law enforcement responsibly in this new environment. Misunderstandings could escalate quickly if both sides are unprepared, emphasizing the importance of knowledge, patience, and cooperation. The cultural landscape is also evolving. The Supreme Court's decision has intensified the national debate around firearms, rights, and safety. Communities must reconcile individual freedoms with collective security, balancing personal liberties with shared responsibility. Gun owners are now more visible participants in this dialogue, tasked with leading by example, promoting safe practices, and educating others about responsible ownership. The ruling is not just legal, it is societal, shaping norms, expectations, and behaviors across the country. Families, neighborhoods, and communities are entering uncharted territory. The decision has changed the way guns are carried, stored, and perceived. Parents must ensure that children understand safety, neighbors must navigate coexistence with increased legal carry, and communities must develop strategies to mitigate risks while respecting rights. This requires dialogue, education, and engagement. The Supreme Court has set the stage, but the play is ongoing, and it requires active participation from responsible citizens. The ruling also highlights the importance of proactive education. Gun owners who rely solely on legal freedom without understanding safety, ethics, and federal laws are at risk. Knowledge of firearm operation, conflict de-escalation, situational awareness, and storage techniques is now critical. Training is no longer a bureaucratic requirement. It is a personal imperative. Those who invest in education will thrive, while those who neglect it may face preventable accidents, misunderstandings, or legal consequences. Socially, the ruling has created new dynamics. Conversations about guns, safety, and rights are no longer abstract. They are immediate and personal. Communities must engage in dialogue, advocate for responsible practices, and support one another in navigating the new legal landscape. Schools, local organizations, and civic groups may now play a larger role in promoting safety education and fostering understanding among residents who may have previously felt disconnected from firearm regulations. Ethically, the responsibility of ownership is now more visible than ever. Gun owners must ask themselves, am I prepared to exercise my rights without causing harm? Will I prioritize safety, training, and awareness? The Supreme Court has removed legal obstacles, but it cannot enforce ethics, judgment, or prudence. These qualities must come from within, guided by personal responsibility, community standards, and a commitment to safe practices. Legally, the landscape is complex. Federal restrictions, prohibited individuals, and interstate transfer rules remain in effect. States may attempt to create new laws within constitutional limits, leading to ongoing legal battles and evolving regulations. Gun owners must stay informed, not only to protect their rights, but also to avoid unintended violations. The absence of permits shifts the burden from government oversight to personal accountability, making awareness and education essential for responsible ownership.